Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Omar and I'm here with my good friend Rami, and we're back for another episode of RizqMDJD, where we talk about finance and how it intersects with Islam. And today we're joined again by our esteemed guest, Ustaz Almir Colan. Assalamu alaikum, Ustaz.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So thanks for being here again for a third time. We had a great conversation in the first two episodes. And today, inshallah, I think we wanted to start by talking about, before we got on here, we explained how some people, probably well-meaning Muslims, sometimes may see a certain story from the seerah or a certain element of Islamic finance, and they will draw parallels between the Islamic finance model and socialism, or the Islamic finance model and perhaps a different example, which makes it seem like it's a capitalist model. And we talked about how that's not necessarily a good comparison, and we wanted you to elaborate on that. And I think it's funny because I thought it was a little, you mentioned it's probably relevant to talk about this because we see Zohran Mamdani, he's soaring in the polls. He's obviously a socialist, and he's Muslim as well. And you probably have a bunch of people on the right wing who are coming out and saying that there's this alliance between Muslims and communists and leftists, and they frame it as it's a natural alliance. We don't think it exists. But especially in the Zionist camp, you'll see this all over social media. They'll say that there's this conspiracy between Muslims and communists and leftists who
ironically were the people that in the 60s in the McCarthy area that America was on a witch hunt with. You know, if you were the bad guy, they would call you a communist.
A communist, yep.
And if I remember correctly, you can correct me. I'm talking out of speak because this is the attorney, mashallah, but the actual law that they used to imprison and attempt to deport several of these political activists was a law, I think, from the 50s that was created and passed specifically to silence and deport either socialist or communist Jews in America. That's the irony of it.
Was it the Espionage Act?
I'll tell you in a moment. I'll look it up, inshallah. But yeah, that's the irony of it. That's the whole point of what that was. And now they're applying it to the Muslims now.
It's funny they say it too, because a lot of Muslim countries suffered at the hands of communists for many, many decades. Eastern Europe, Central Asia, many places throughout the Muslim world, the Islamic expression was suppressed for a long time. So there is no conspiracy or alliance between Muslims and communism, but that's a topic for a different day. But Ustaz, tell us how the Islamic model is unique and you can't really liken it to capitalism or socialism, even though there may be places where there is a convergence.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah. You see, a result of much of that history that you just narrated, even from American perspective, and a lot of the wars that happened and the way this was handled, is result of ignorance. Americans did not have much experience with Russia or with Europe or the rest of the world, and so they feared, actually, communists, that they will take over. So when they go to Vietnam or when they go to any of these wars, they had irrational fear what is happening. They thought that people would be flocking to embrace that way of thinking at that time. And the best example of that, if you want to see, is and this is something that right-wing politicians and people use often, is where people want to go. There was what they call iron curtain between these countries on the east and the west, meaning the communist sort of countries, which they used to call at that time Warsaw Pact, which was opposition to NATO. And so this was late. This was after Second World War lines that were drawn when Berlin fell, and Germany was split in half. So you had the famous Berlin Wall where Gorbachev stood. Where Reagan said to Gorbachev, "Tear down this wall," and which accelerated at the end officially the fall of that system. But during that time, people were running away to the West because the freedoms and everything more was there. And they were not running to go under this communist regime, which was designed where everybody spied on everyone. Your neighbors had to spy on you, you spied your neighbor, you didn't have any basics in your life. So the West feared this idea that it would gain prominence, while at that time West was realistically much more free. And the East, let's say, or these other countries, communist countries, they were against religion, against freedom. It's easy to be jailed and so on. So just from the perspective of freedom, that was the exaggeration, which is why when you look at the Muslims, they were, even in US, my understanding is that many of the Muslims were voting for George Bush,
yes.
80% or something, up to the Iraq war, because they saw him as a conservative and so on. And so their experience of America was not one that threatened their freedoms and that there was injustice. But it was marked by, we came to America, there is a dream, we can be free and so on, which is many of the immigrants, why they follow this American dream. Or any other Australian dream or any other dream. It's basically that freedom that they were lacking, and we were lacking that freedom. So America at that time, if you see, hired most of these, even German engineers. Famously NASA was created by them. Much of the technology transfer happened in those post-Second World War years. But one thing that they did also was, because they didn't have intelligence and information on Russia, they would hire German SS or their intelligence units to be spies and give them this information. So eventually what happened is that they took this to the extreme where they started forcing their idea of economic prosperity on others. So we see that particularly after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, and this is where really that battle between two sides became very obvious as a battle, is that when American McDonald's opened in Moscow, and that was seen dominance of American values, of democracy, of capitalism, and finally when those McDonald's expanded, I think it was just under 1,000 McDonald's. The first day particularly there was 30,000 people in the opening. It was celebrated as such and such. A lot of people in Russia got humiliated, and this is which led to rise of the Putin. This kind of in your face humiliation, almost capitulation in front of superior value system, led later on, specifically when Ukraine happened, to when these McDonald's started shutting down, that Russia actually reopened them under a different name. And so you have this battle. A lot of this in the past is waged based on ignorance, and it led to the conflicts. Now, a reality of the Islamic system is today is dealing also with a very similar ignorance among people, where people are, an interesting thing with the ignorance, it's almost somehow connect to the word ignore, ignoring something. I know it's probably not, but just in my mind, part of ignorance is where you ignore some parts, and that's how you become a person with the gaps in your understanding. And so when people today look Islamic economic system, they usually look at whatever the caricatures of this capitalist system and the socialist systems are. And so a lot of our people would look, for example, today at the injustice of capitalism, something that we call crony capitalism. And they would say, well, Islam could never be like that. We are like this. And then they would look in a very romantic version of this socialism. In technically, the communism is like the whole political umbrella as well. So they would look at the socialism and they would say, look, at the socialism is so much nicer. They have better intention because, look, they treat everybody equally. They are for the little guy. You know, and they would say that Islamic system is a welfare system. You know, Medina was a welfare state kind of thing, and their understanding of welfare state is system where there was a circulation of the wealth. Wealth was taken from the rich, given to the poor. So they would say, oh, look at Zakat, look at something like that. That means Islamic system is like that. Then there would be another group of people who would look at completely differently. They would say that there are freedoms in Islam, that you own the properties and then you can dispose how you wish. And therefore they would say, because there is a profit component, you are not discouraged to make profit, that you would be looking at Islamic economic system as a Prophet ﷺ, according to them, is the first capitalist and so on. So what this ignores, this kind of
framing,
worldview,
reductionist,
yeah, is intention of both of these systems. So these systems, they have their intentions, their ideas, and the world that they want to build. And Islam has its own worldview that it's trying to build. And therefore, just because certain overlap happens doesn't mean that we are explaining Islam through the prism of the capitalism or socialism or any other system. Just like it would be very silly if the capitalist came and say, we have Islamic system, we have socialist system, how do we define capitalism? Is it more Islamic or no? They would be self-centered, just like we should be. We should have our own principle and we should center our own understanding based on our ideas, not on the, how am I with respect to other people, because other people, other ideas, they have their own framing. Now, today, if you look, there isn't, and I guess in the past, for a long time, there was no one particular system that you could say, this is it. Like, this is 100% that, I was over the weekend, last weekend in Perth, and I was talking, I went to see this exhibition of the coins. They have a very interesting coin mint, very old, one of the oldest, I think, and only one in the world where they still mint the gold on the original place where they used to mint it, like I don't know how many 100 years ago or something. And next to it there was a shop of the rare coins where I met this gentleman, and we ended up talking a couple of hours. I was just there for 2 days visiting some friends' museums, just looking around and learning a little bit about history and things. I was at even I have sometimes some work, like lecture or presentation in the night. During the day, I try to relax my mind by trying to learn as much as I can about the city where I am. And so, although I was here before, I thought it would be an interesting experience to visit some of the shops and talk to some of the people, see their mind. And so I met this interesting gentleman who had this worldview where something is going to terribly happen, these conspiracy theories, and you need to run away, take your gold and silver coin, just go and stockpile your food. And we had very interesting discussion, a couple of hours. And one of the points he was saying is that, but the real communism was never tried. And this is usually the kind of defense but we didn't have it really. Like everybody always, when something fails or you prove the concept wrong, the last thing that you can say, oh well, something happened, it was not really tried, you know. Now, when you look at the core of this, you know, and he asked me like, what are you saying? What is Islamic system, or what do you think is a criticism? I said to him, but he was not very impressed, and I was trying to think about what is it that he missed. He asked me, what is the one thing that if you could change, it would make a massive difference, if you could change. And so I said to him, one component really that I think is very, very important in this whole system is really freedom of people to conduct their affairs without third party. You know, we have in Quran principle that it says that do not take each other property without consent, without trade, mutual trade. So when you exchange or when you take something, let it be through the trade and through the mutual consent, meaning that there shouldn't be a third party. And so this system of people who are free to conduct, to engage, to produce something, and there is this a lack of third party that interfere. I think it's a very important block that is sometimes not really appreciated or well understood in a matter of building the system. And I believe that if you trace any system, it's on this particular point where divergence starts. And based on this, the different systems are constructed. And so, for example, I'll give you a very simple idea. So when we think about this communism, of course, and socialism, when government end up owning most of the things, when you are not supposed to own anything, when you are not rewarded from that work, yes, we can say that these systems did not understand that I will not work as hard as I can if I'm not going to be rewarded from that work. Mm-hmm. You know, one teacher, one professor gave the very simple example to the students in the class. He told them, after the exam, he said, I have all of your paper in my hand. I know what you have done. I have a proposal for you. What about if I take all of your grades and I take an average and we distribute the grades? Let's vote. So majority of the people voted, let's do that. And if you look at grades like A, B, C, D, you know, whatever, everybody got average B, which is just under A. And that was the proof that they said, you see, this equal distribution, equality, we achieved, everybody got B. Sure, it's not A, it's not ideal, but we all got B. And so the question then became, you know, let's do it always like this. So this is your socialism in a sort of caricature way, you know, of course, nuances, things, but always look at the idea, isolate the main core. And so the next time, what do you think happened? Did the class do better or worse?
Much worse, because you took away their incentive to work hard.
Right. So those people who worked hard to get a good grades, which lifted up everybody, they knew that, well, my work is not going to be rewarded, it's just going to be distributed, and why would I waste my work? I'm just going to get whatever, B. Now in their mind is I'm going to get a B for nothing. So I'm just working extra the way which I'm not going to get, so I'm anyway just going to get a B. But what they don't realize is that everybody think like that, so everybody drops the ball. So now everybody next time are going to perform much less, so that it's going to be C and then D, and then eventually you will have no one studying. I'm not going to study to carry entire class. I don't care. So no one then studies. So everybody will fail. Everybody. So you see, this is in the most simple way. This is why socialism failed. Why then it has to coerce people to do certain things. Then it will be, okay, you now have to do 2 hours sit, we're going to monitor you. Why all of these other controls need to go in to force the work? Because now you don't want it anymore. Mm-hmm. So from there, you going against the human nature. So this is why eventually, unless, of course, when there are certain other incentives, like, for example, you look at their defense industry and some areas where there was a pride to be working on the rockets and missiles and defending country, they did work, scientists. There was this different kind of level of incentives. In a similar way, when you look at the capitalist model, when you remove yourself completely, and they were able to test their idea, be rewarded, then they fully dedicated themselves to this role. Okay, and so if I can now be rewarded for that, I'll do it, and so on. Now, this is interesting thing. I was watching your New York mayoral primary with Zohran Mandani. And I thought about this, how interesting that in US now you have these calls towards socialism, even in Australia. You have this kind of resurgences. And before I go into the more sort of details, of course, this is a very shallow explanation from my side. I understand that, and there needs to be more. And people who study this deeply will criticize, you didn't say this or you didn't say that, but before I go into, and I understand how this can be criticized, what I was saying, but I was just trying to establish, before I ask you a question, to establish that it is actually from certain principles and freedoms, the downstream of that comes the system. It's not just we come up with the system just out of nothing, but this is just one of the core, I believe, systems. But before I go into that more, I want to ask you, why do you think now you see, let's say in US or around the world, this resurgence of calls by young people towards a socialism or something along those lines?
Well, today I heard something on a podcast saying that the average first-time home buyer in America now is age 38. Which a generation ago, at 38, people are not getting married, things are unaffordable, and you find that youth are getting more, quote unquote, radicalized when it comes to economic theory, and they feel like because everything is unaffordable, they need to resort to either extreme left wing or extreme right wing to get this system that's in place moving and changing. And
do you mind if I kind of reference stuff we haven't talked about yet?
Sure.
So I think you give it. I know what you said in terms of not all the details, but I think you gave a very kind of bare bones, very clear explanation of the core principle in communism. And to clarify, it's the state is the third party, right? They're the ones who are coming in and taking. And I think I'd love to hear your example. I'm sure it's much better than mine, but just off the cuff of my head, I think the simplistic analysis of capitalism is you have unlimited opportunities and resources and aptitude, etc., but it relies on, I think there's an argument made, it's not even part of the system at all, but it relies on the assumed intrinsic beneficence of people to help out those who haven't made it. And because in general there's no requirements and no repercussions for not doing so, I think capitalism is aligned with kind of survival of the fittest. So because it doesn't have an intrinsic requirement to provide that ethical, moral impotence for those who have made it, to help those who haven't. That's how you end up with such a wide rift between the elite in the capitalism, where I don't know the latest statistics, they change all the time now, but it's like what the top 50 richest people in the world own more wealth than what is it, the bottom 99% of people, and so that it causes that widening the gap. And then part of it is that because we don't know an alternative to that, the pendulum swings, like you said, to the extreme other end, and they say, okay, so now we need something that's going to focus on the little guy, even at the expense of the big guy. Why? Because we need something or someone to take care of those who can't, who are behind, who are troubled, etc. Like for me, even my political views have kind of changed over time as, alhamdulillah, like, you know, become more, I guess you could say, educated and learned, etc. But, you know, like Ustaz Colan was saying, I remember I grew up at a time where everyone voted for Bush. We were told everyone voted for Bush, and then all of a sudden everyone voted for Obama, and like he was like the assassinator in chief.
Gore before,
you know?
that. I mean, not Gore, Kerry.
Yeah, I didn't want to name drop, but I remember that was the let's block vote for Bush. I still remember because who was running against? He was running against
McCain, Kerry.
Kerry, and people were saying, oh, because he's Yehudi, they don't want to vote for that. But people don't look at his track record. People don't know politically who he is, in charge of the Kala group, etc. You know, I don't want to go left field. But the point being is that because of frame of reference, people typically want to go into the socialist sphere because they're like, oh, this is going to help me out. This is going to help the poor. This is going to, etc. At what cost, as you mentioned? But I think it's because this is not working. I don't know what else. Let me go to the other end of the pendulum. Oh, and here's my final answer. Because we don't have Islam. And we don't know Islam. Like I would argue that if we showed people the benefits of the Islamic system, it would be a natural choice.
So you're right. People simply observe their current condition, and then their imagination is just sparked that, well, if this doesn't work, then I better go to the next alternative. Yeah. Because in the psychology today of the world, these are two ways. And everything is left or right, or this or that, black and white. Like everything is kind of clear-cut choice. I'm on team A or B. Yeah. There is no C. So it's why I think it's interesting to observe, for instance, New York, which is the place of the Wall Street, the heart of the capitalism. Everything that you dream, American dream, stock exchange, wealth, Trump Tower, everything is there, right? So it's what is interesting is that in those conditions, you have a candidate for your mayor of this city running on providing people free groceries. Not free groceries, but cheaper groceries. That the concern of the people in the richest city in the world is groceries. Yeah. That such a disparity, such a sharp contrast between the types of people that live in that city, that you can have so wealthy that they control the rest of the world resources through their organizations, and then you have people who cannot simply afford the next meal. And that meal is not a high quality meal. It's a very, very basic meal. There's no calories, there's no fruit, veggies, you know, all of that food pyramid doesn't exist, you know. So this is why we see such a polarization, because people on the ground are polarized. And you then wonder, all right, so what is the way? And so in that environment, the guy who proposed even so radical example that government will run the groceries and people go for it, they're so desperate for any change, any hope, that they will say, okay, let the government run it. We will go for that. And so I thought, in my own area, would that be a good idea? Would the response be where how would that unfold? How would that unfold? We see how these big corporations are failing us. We live there. How would it be that if the government was running? Well, we have many of these examples where the government get involved. You know, I live here in the area where I have a friend of mine runs a grocery store, local grocery store in our neighborhood, and you know these guys, they get up in the morning like 4, 5, 6 o'clock. They go to the wholesale market. They pick the best fruit possible for the best price. They've been doing this for decades. And then they come so that in the morning you have vegetables, you have fruit, you have things like that. And the whole model is on very, very thin market, competing against giant supermarkets that are squeezing farmers, everything, you know. So they are already operating on very thin margin. They are giving it all. They are members of the community, and they provide such an important function. Now, if the government were to now introduce the grocery store that they subsidize, they employ a couple of kids from 20s, 30s, like people. Okay, now you have a salary and you will do this and this is how you do it, and you can see anybody who worked in the business and they're not gonna care too much to do what this person has been doing to that level of knowledge or dedication. They will just do whatever is they will go to the market. Yeah, give me these potatoes.
Good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter.
Just put it in, whatever is, You think the guy who is there putting potatoes in will pick the best ones or the worst ones from that bunch. He knows that there are some other people who want the best one, who are serious about what they're getting. So, and he knows this foolish new person, he doesn't know, he doesn't care. He's going to get subsidized salary by government no matter what. So he doesn't have incentives to do beyond his work, His salary is not connected with the outcome. And so this guy is going to give him the worst. After a while, I'm going to notice that, look, what is this? A quality dropped. I'm not going to be shopping there. And then eventually, as this lazy bureaucracy sets in, as it is example in all of our countries who live in communism. You go to take your driver's license, there are 10 people and the checkpoints that you have to go through the building.
Yeah.
This you sign it here, then you dot here, and then you take another paper, go back to the level 1 and then to level 7 and then come tomorrow. Everybody who went through bureaucracy of these communists knows how this is inefficient and very badly managed. Because after a while, these incentives run out. You have nothing. By the way, by the time this collapses, you destroy this other business.
Yeah.
So then, in a couple of years' time, this business become unsustainable by government, too expensive, and priority shifts somewhere else. Something else become a winning issue for the community. Then they shift that money, close this down. Bye, Charlie. So, as a community, what do you have? You now destroy your grocery and veggie shop, right? So it's a very, you are between, basically, at the end of this road, you become between either your big government provides all of your solutions, like in socialism, because they end up controlling more and more and everything, and you rely on them to provide you everything. Or in capitalism, concentration of the power is such where they find a way to keep extracting and fragmenting consumers up to the point where everything is provided by big corporation. So you have really two systems where no matter how we now plot the path and how incentives work and what's happening, you end up in a situation either big government or big corporations are providing everything. And so now the question becomes then, okay, so how do you actually, if the answer to the big a corporation is not doing anything. And the government big is not good as well to deliver these things. What is the solution? What is the solution? Well, the solution is actually in organized people. You see, Mandani is an interesting case to study because he picked up on the sentiments of the people, and he picked up that they were fighting organized money, big money, by way of organizing people. Okay? And now, if you look at Islamic sort of model, Islamic model looks at these things a little bit differently. And it draws, there are some parallels you can say with the parts that we see in this welfare or left-leaning or socialist, in a sense that there is incentivization of me personally distributing my wealth. There is definitely that component. There is a component, if you want to look at it through the lens of capitalism, where I should be free to manage and succeed and share from that. There is certainly that. But there is a very unique set of principles which are faith-driven incentives that encourage person how to treat that community, that it's not just I'm maximizing the profit, it's not just that I'm thinking about myself, but I'm thinking about us collectively. And through this, we have different mechanisms. One thing is that we don't believe in, as a structure of a society, in broken down, atomized society where everybody is for themselves, which is why we become easy target of big corporation. We become easy picking targets. But we believe that we come together as a community, as a economy units, families, and we build society that cooperates, that works together. So, for instance, I believe that in this instance, where you're talking about, let's say, this case of Mandani, since you do already have a huge corporations that you are fighting, and then there is a government that trying to do something, organized people on the model of like Waqf model, would be very interesting case where you have, let's say, groceries that are run by the community actually. And those groceries, for example, you would have people from the community, those people who shop there, they work, they establish that, and for the purpose of that community, their mission would be, let us get the best groceries, the most healthiest food for our community. And you would have on the board the moms, dads, people who are really there, who from their own money, they create like a non-for-profit almost organization that is like a Waqf or something along those lines, trust, where you are looking, and the main perspective there is that you say, we don't want it to be a lazy organization. We have a stake in the outcomes, not just in profit outcome of this, but we have a stake in, for example, this being viable business, something that is good for the farmers from whom we now get the food, that they can sustainably and profitably run their farms. We get good things, we have a good jobs, and you suddenly have a community effort where it's not necessarily like your big government that is disconnected, but it's not only for profit, right? So you have a people sort of cooperating on different things. Now, that's not to say that you do not want people running other things, you want in reality that you have entrepreneurs who, for the right reason, for the profit, and also from Islamic perspective, for the benevolent reason, run the businesses and solutions and so on. So, for example, whether it's food production or anything else that community needs, you want to have a healthy dose of entrepreneurs and also community-based projects that are working in one community. So that is how I think about some of these current sort of divisions that we are having. Now, this is very, very high level, and very simple kind of way of framing, just based on one example. But when you look at as a system level, even on your capitalist side, when you look at different systems, economic systems, what is differentiating factor in all of them is the understanding of how the freedom to coerce somebody into something and freedom to actually exercise your free will impact the economics of what you are then later on building. And for example, you look at the taxation or stamp duties or any kind of, I don't know how you call them there, we have a good GST or,
taxes,
or
sales
some
tax,
kind of a tax,
sales
tax and things like that. All of these are a third party interfering between me and you. And more the government can come and interfere by taking a chunk of that. I pay you money for the bread, I take 10% out. You get then money from that sale minus 10%, then I take income tax from that. Then I have a company tax, then I have another thing for this and that. You see, this ability to interfere between two is what then feeds bureaucracy, like government, to now become involved in everything that around you. Then they get this money, we need to now to build the roads for you, we need to build the military for you, we need to healthcare for you, we need to build groceries for you, we need to build, like, why? Because you have a good intention. So now this government apparatus starts working. And this is where it becomes really blurry between capitalism and socialism, because both of these systems, you see, what incentivizes the third party to come and interfere is ability of the third party to profit from that interference. Which is why our Islamic scholars were inherently very much against these types of things like income tax and these kind of taxation like that, because it is in something that you do not have right to take. I give you money and you give me service and I'm taking the money. By what right you have that? By who gives you right? Just because you want to open something for me, do something for me. You understand? So when you can do that, then the cooperation comes around that ability to extract money. So now me and you, three of us, are not cooperating anymore to solve the problem in our town, whether it's a grocery or a road or a new university or a hospital or something. It's not us that cooperate in a free way. We will cooperate to deliver the same outcomes, but around this way of monetization through extraction. You understand?
Yeah.
So we will somebody will deliver that hospital. Like, let's say we're building the hospital. Oh, no, government must do it. Why? Because they have a more efficient way of extracting money. Now, we have disconnected from society, we don't know the people, we are automized again, we don't know how to do it anymore. So who knows? Well, either big government know how to extract the money and then build the hospital, funnily enough, by hiring the private contractors, or the corporation knows how to do it. You know, like, but think about think about now what is going on. In any case, we kind of do not believe anymore that we can do it without this being wrapped in a vehicle of the government or another vehicle of the corporations. If I were to tell you, you know, as Apple, we need to make iPhone now, but as a community, let's as a community make Apple. Oh, we can't. Immediately we jump. We can't make it. Why? Only LLC company can make it when they have a name, company or something like that. So when we put it on the paper, this is now the company, now we can do it. Now we can raise the fund. now we can do this and that. But when we call ourselves community, that's no way. And so we already got indoctrinated that I can't do it. We are community. We are busy. We are busy with things. We can't do it. It has to be something like that. And so we already don't have this kind of mindset, because we are now broken down into individuals who outsource all of their things. Or I now say to you, even simple things like, let's move money. Let's help Gaza. Let's help these people. No, it has to be organization. We do not know how could three of us cooperate to build a hospital in Gaza. We would have to be under some vehicle. We couldn't be like organically, and I'm not talking about legalities and all of these things, but I'm saying that initiative to call, to do, to manage something that we have already expertise. And so what is happening after a while is that we just become too reliant on something that looks predictable model, which is that either the big government that now is extracting and forcing money out of the pockets of the people, or a big businesses. Now I'll give you an example in Australia what is happening right now. So for the government to finance these things, in last 10 years, government increased circulation of the money by 80%. Think about it. Government just printed or inflated our available money. And now, for the first time, what we are seeing is that more jobs are being created in the government sector than in the private sector. Mm-hmm. And so now, I think we are already at the point where almost half of the jobs are in the government sector. Think about that. Think about that situation now. 50% of our population live from they are just spending money that these 50% created. And because it doesn't make sense, they're just increasing the money circulation. So because these 50% cannot feed all of this bureaucracy that is just there to spend the money. Or we are smart, we need to build the roads. Okay, how we build the roads? We'll take your money. Then we who don't have a work, other than through elected career politicking, office politics, we will be the one to spend it on the things. How are we going to do that? Well, we'll give it to our friends who are also have a shadow organization, then goes through 10 circles of hell, and then comes to another private company who actually does it after the cuts and cuts and cuts. Thousands of cuts through that money. And so we create this kind of a system, and now this system has to feed itself. They will start increasing more tax from people. They will now print more money. So you see, this, like a cancer, will grow so big that will kill the golden goose. That's how you kill the golden goose, by suffocating it. There is no incentives now for me. Like, even if I go now to Bosnia and I look, somebody start a business and pay $1,000 to the person who works for them. They need to pay $700 to the government for the tax and other things. Can you believe that? Because we have so many levels of the government that feed off that, like leeches, like parasites. If you live in a building of a couple of hundred people, you paying I don't know how much to some bureaucracy to manage that. It's end up being in the millions a year, and they don't even paint the building or clean it or anything, And so from this perspective of when you stop people to be free, to when you allow somebody to interfere between them, and you kill that spirit of community, freedom, and us connecting more and more, because what that does, it kills the links between us. Okay. Then you have this huge growth of these other systems, whether it's a government or a corporation. It kills the links between us, and it actually rewires us to big corporation or to the big government. Okay, they become like a god, like a family, like providers, everything in the eyes of the people. And so in Islam, I think the core of it is to empower, put back the power into the individuals, into the families, into the communities, where that cooperation on the ground is encouraged, where more and more people are, everyone is entrepreneurial, everybody is involved, everybody is, those chains, those bureaucracies are shorter, lesser. Of course, there are some complex projects. You know, you're building latest car or engine or something like that, which is complex. Of course, it requires the wider cooperation. You know, that is for sure. We live in the time when something like that is critical. But at the core of it is your active participants. You want people to be more participating, and you want a faith to kind of drives and uplifts the people. To take care of the people and also really be concerned about people. So if I'm a farmer, I'm producing the food, I'm not just going to produce the food, you know, that makes no sense. You know, I want a food that is really good. I'll give you a very simple example. As I was in Perth, as I mentioned last week, I was passing, we were going through some desert, and we stopped next to some farms. Me and my wife, we like to buy some of these farm produce. And so we went through this place where they have oranges and avocados. And so we entered in one of these farms, and, you know, it's an old-fashioned, you know, farm. So we saw these little avocados, oranges, and we bought, and they were 50 cents. Avocado was 50 cents. And I said to my wife, look, isn't it interesting? Like, I will now go to the petrol station or a supermarket, and the bottle of water will be $3, like a piece of plastic. And this avocado grown on this land is
50 cents.
So much nutritious, so much is 50 cents. It's like, I consider it's like, it's a worthless kind of thing. It's just 50 cents. Orange like this, when you eat it, it smells, the taste, the everything. Because, you know, they grow them on they don't pick them and spray them to get ready to eat.
Yeah.
They actually keep them on the tree, and when it's ready to eat, they take them and put it in the shop. And so it's naturally ready for you. And I thought, isn't it interesting that, and the lady was telling me how the reason why avocado is small is because they had very hot weather, so it killed a lot of avocados. But I thought, isn't it interesting how difficult it is for these people to grow this avocado, because it's much easier now to take some synthetic compound and make some powder, and they sell you, and take that picture of that avocado and sell you for $10 some powder avocado. Well, they'll say, this is real one. This is a real thing. And there's no avocado there. Just a picture of that. Once upon a time, there was avocado. And they don't care that this is just a compound, synthetic and stuff like that. And so when I think about where we are heading, that whether these big governments, big corporations, because they are not really connected to you. They are just connected with certain objectives and power and so on. Their products and services will not have your best interest. Only you will have your best interest. And only person of faith who is connected to another person in their society, when they are making that avocado or product, they will say, look, I want to make real avocado. I want to make real orange. I don't want just some powder that will create a cancer in this person tomorrow. I want real things because I care for this person. I wouldn't give it to my child, to the newborn baby. I don't want to give it to another person just for extra profit. You know, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to work. I'm going to connect with this person. I'll have a different kinds of holistic view. And so really, these are some of the thoughts that I think when I think about Islamic economic system. It's a system that values that freedom, that incentivize your hard work, but that hard work or incentivization is not only for the profit motive. That is there to serve your community, and because you see the people that you serve, you have a relationship. It plays into your meaning how from that different kinds of incentives will flow. This will be your people in the mosque. This will be people that tomorrow your kids will marry into their families. You know, this is the community that not only will not try to maximize the profit at the point of the killing the community with fake products, but it is the community that understands and values that, you know, there is something called profit, but that profit, again, just like I serve them with my products and services, I will serve my family with extra surplus profit, but I will put that extra surplus profit back in the community to again serve those people, and so it's going to create totally different dynamic.
SubhanAllah. Yeah, it's so many thoughts running through my head based on what you said. SubhanAllah. Like especially the importance of the waqf model, which essentially has been lost, especially in the communities we live in today. And like you said, you look at the two options, corporate and government, and we don't even envision or see anything. And I'll be honest with you, until you mentioned it, I don't think I ever saw the disconnect between us managing and solving our own problems. Because I think if you don't step outside the bubble to just stop and think and realize, you're kind of just you're on the highway, you're just looking at things passing by, you're not stopping to see what actually is going on. You're just very, very busy. And subhanAllah, I'm sure that the society kind of incentivizes that. So the government wants to grow bigger, etc. And at some parts, it's ironic that the government and the big corporations are the same thing. You know, it's a revolving door. They're not working. I would argue not just are they not working in your best interest, but a lot of times they're working against your interests. You know, the opioid crisis is a very good example where we have something called the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, where the same people that be on there kind of regulating these opiate drugs, etc., or any other drugs, etc., may make some allowances for certain pharmaceutical companies, and then 2-3 years later, they find themselves on a consultation role of this same drug company making 10x what they did in the government. And so it's just, you know, it's a back and forth. And so you have to be very wary of who's going to have your best interest other than you. And I was also thinking at the same time, you know, like we have toll roads a lot in Florida. And I was thinking, subhanAllah, I'm not saying like, let's go build a toll road, but just imagine, to me, that's like a waqf idea. Hey, let's put the money together. Let's go ahead and build this road. And then as a community, we will take care of it. And the money stays here. We're going to cover our maintenance. We're going to cover. It's kind of like, you know, I'm on like the HOA for my neighborhood. Same thing. Like we have funds that we put in. If you have a third party managing that, they're not going to care. They're going to sign the checks. Whatever estimate comes in, we'll spend whatever. Why? It's not your money. But when it's your money, inshallah, you'd have like the desire, the incentive to try and make sure it's managed properly in the best fashion. It's going to, you know, reflect your goals and values. And I think this is like 2-3 years ago, maybe even more, I heard about some companies in California that started this type of model where every single employee of the company was a partial owner. And so everyone in the company owns a part of the company. And you can imagine like the productivity they had, the loyalty they had, the desire. No one's going to come in and give you C- effort. They're all going to try and give you A+ effort. Why? Because they know that I'm not going to line the pockets of the man. I'm helping lining my own pockets. And I don't think that is in conflict with the waqf idea, because the waqf idea is not a non-profit. It's more of like we take home our profit, we reap the benefits, but also the excess that we don't need is going to go back into the community to either potentiate this project or expand other projects to support other things, etc. Last thing I was going to say, just because of the grocery stores you were saying, I think you and I had an offline chat about this too. It's probably like, I just look at like this is common, I think, in many Muslim communities I've lived in. We have all these like mom and pop shops, which is great. Alhamdulillah, it's awesome. But imagine if we had, in middle America, a bunch of Muslim farmers and I don't know what they call them, the ones that raise cattle, I guess. I guess, are they called
cattle
farmers?
Rangers?
Yeah, rangers or whatever. Yeah, and they grew the crops, they grew the raised the animals, etc. And then you had like a single community supermarket chain nationwide. So now you have. You can tell me if this is a bad thing or a good thing, but like my thoughts are, now you have purchasing power because you're gonna have someone being able to buy in bulk, which lowers the price. Now you have the ability to unify the community where different groups can co-own it versus like you owning your store, I'm owning my store. How much you're going to be able to buy your stuff from? How much am I going to be able to buy my stuff? How much space are you going to be able to have, etc. Obviously, especially within the halal constraints, right? Versus it's like, hey, let's come together. Let's build one community store. We'll call it whatever, Halal Inc. or whatever. And that becomes the community supermarket that all the different groups are owning, and it becomes a waqf for the community as well. Like, to me, that'd be like a very basic building block that's necessary. Not like, it's not step 10. It'd be like one of the intro steps to developing your community. Why? Because you got to eat, you got to drink. You got to have healthy food. You got to have halal meat. A lot of people are very, very big on that. So, like, I feel conflicted when I go to a non-Muslim place. I go to Sam's or Publix or whatever. Yeah, I'm buying halal meat. But why are they taking my money versus us buying from us and keeping the money in our community?
Yeah, it's you have this impact of the globalization where somebody is making a product in one part of the world for somebody who is in totally different continent, So the supply chains of, let's say, fresh food are so long that you can't logistically deliver this. It has to go on a ship, it has to go on a plane or something. It takes weeks. Yeah. So now you're dealing with something that is a real live thing. Orange or some mango or mandarin, and so this creates different kind of challenges again because we have now the globalized race. But going back to so that people don't understand, in Islam we have a different ways to do it. Like I was mainly mentioning waqf here as a response to the situation between the government run your groceries. Or a big corporation runs the groceries, or the failure of current system. That particular thing where waqf could do it. Now, it would be great that more people, let's say those farmers or the way that we structure life, that they are closer to these places where the people could go and directly maybe purchase, or that they would supply place directly and so on. That what we are consuming, it's come from around us, in the areas around us, that we have structured our life around these kinds of things. Now, when I said also waqf, that doesn't mean that we don't have other ways. We do certainly value where people come into the type of a joint venture where they pool their money, resources, and then they make a product or service, and then this is a more commercial. So the differentiation has to be here between, in your society, there are certain things that we have to solve commercially for profit, and there are certain things that we saw that are beyond just the profit and loss. It's a cooperative model. And there are other things and services which are charitable purely. So if you look at, for example, Zakat, it's purely charity. You are giving up money to lift people. That's it. You just charity, purest charity. If you look at for-profit venture, it's it's a backbone of your economy. You want people to work, to be rewarded, to be active, and to negotiate between each other, And more people can have that entrepreneurial aspect, because back in the days, everyone was entrepreneur. There was no something, I work for you, you work for me. When you go to the olden day villages somewhere, I remember my wife was telling me her grandfather, he was in village, and at each season he would do different things. In summer he would do this. In winter he would do that. Whether it's I don't know, like different types of the crops, or blacksmith doing something, or during the winter something else. He would have 4 or 5 different jobs which was suitable for seasons, for climate, and different kinds of skills, which he would then serve his village. And he didn't even have money. He didn't need money for most of the things. He would just need the money when he would go to the town to buy something that they didn't have, like a sugar or a coffee or something like that. Then he would need money. Money was not, or to pay some rates to the government. Otherwise, he didn't have any money. Didn't need money. They would exchange products. And so this is a kind of a healthy society and so the question becomes, how would you differentiate what are for-profit, what are charity, what are cooperative projects? So I'll give you a very simple example. Supreme Court, justice system, is that for-profit, non-for-profit, or cooperative? You understand? Yeah. Think about it. You wouldn't want corporations to run your justice system, because they would incentivize it. Like if you watch the Michael Moore movie, they started giving longer sentences because jails were run by corporations. So, okay. Now, so think about justice. Supreme Court cannot be for-profit. All right. What about then institution of money? Money itself, it should be run in a similar way. Money itself should be not for-profit activity, where the government, through our own money, is minting money that preserve the value for us, that serve us. Just like justice system serve us, money is the same way. It's a judge of economic activities. Okay? And so from there, you start sort of thinking, all right, so we have, why is then lending charity in Islam? It's not for profit. Okay, so that means that institutions that lend just the money should be something that is cooperative, non-for-profit, charity type of activities. Now, products and services. You see, the communism would continue this in everything, into product and services, and everything needs to be like this. Yeah. No, but we say, no, this now, products and services are for profit. You understand? So we diverge immediately from communism there. Yeah. Also, in capitalism, they would say, no, these are not money, this, this is for profit. We can make money from this. We can do this. And so how you see this, so how would you kind of judge? Of course, there's a bit of a judgment there, but we already know that just the principles that somebody should not interfere between me and you is the huge disincentive to create bureaucracies that keep interfering and extracting money. So us being connected, identifying key organizations that are for profit, which is where our bulk of our services, our things come from. Somebody who's going to make this shirt, this laptop, and so on, for profit activities rewarded. Then they will use then the role of faith. Just because they make this microphone and they make a profit, they will also give to somebody else. There is a faith incentives that kind of glues this system together, and so it is the faith incentives that are missing in the both of these systems at the end of the day, because they shape also the growth of negative products and services. So not only do we not want to incentivize the structures and mix up what should be a community, not-for-profit and for-profit activity to rig the system and get a crony capitalism, but we also don't want a weeds, which is incentivization of the products, services, and relationships between the people that have detrimental impact on society. So you want to cut that. You also don't want a selfishness in society, and none of these can weed out that aspect: greed, selfishness, just myself. And only through the faith-based incentive can you look now at a bit of a bigger picture and say, look, I can't live in a city. It doesn't make sense where the concentration of the wealth is so much, and I'm so oblivious to the person next to me cannot buy fruit and veggies to feed their children, where there is starvation. You understand? Yeah. So that system that can produce such a wealth inequality, but that wealth inequality is not result of government not taking enough from you. Government is taking more than enough. It's just that they don't also care. Just like the big business doesn't care. Because they have no reason to care. They will solve the problem in a way that is very superficial. And especially the government these days, look at how they are solving the problem, just by silencing others. And the surface level. Because no matter how much money they take, money always have alternative use. I can build a highway or feed these people or, something. Yeah, I can't do all. You look at just the healthcare. I can't do all, So what do I do? It has to be a different solution. And so it's this competition for that dollar, for that money, that creates opportunities for people to grab for that dollar, because it creates its own system. What I can solve as a community for $1, the corporation or the big government need $20 to solve. Because it created the easy way of extracting money, creates also easy way to get that money off the government as well. Because it's now the funnel, it's now the thing that extracts the money for the game players, who are very sophisticated in that. And so it's your big corporations spend hundreds of millions and billions because they benefit the most from these things, from the laws and from the benefits and the loopholes and things like that. And so if we work as a community, we are going to have more. I don't want to use just the word blessing as an easy shortcut, what it is, but we're going to be much more diligent in how we stretch that money, how we look at it.
Ustaz, you talked about earlier in this podcast the flaws or the dangers of socialism. You gave the example of the government-run grocery stores and how this inevitably will lead to, less passion of the employees and the people who are running the system to not put forth their best efforts. So I think we understood the ills of socialism. And then you also touched on what happens when the big corporations run everything, how they get disconnected from the people and pursue profits at all costs, without any kind of regard for ethics and the best interest of the consumers or the people. In the Islamic model, do we assume or do we understand that there is a free market system, but there are certain safeguards in place to prevent the corporations or the private sector from becoming rabid and pursuing profit at all costs? So is there some sort of government intervention in the Islamic model?
So in the Islamic model, people are free to engage as they wish. So a lot of people feel that there should be some kind of a safeguard And what is the role of the government in that system? The role of the government is should be to avoid some kind of exploitation, injustice, and to regulate for outcomes when there is underlying some deception at play. So a government is not there to tell you what to do, how to do it, and interfere in a judgment between two parties. So, for example, a government would step in if there is not enough information in the market, somebody is cheating. Let's say now we have corporations that when they, like now these private equities that you see, for instance, which on the surface looks very Islamic, private equity, what can be better than people, doing that? But what they do basically is they buy the company, they strip it of assets, they lie, they cheat, and they make a little bit nice, colorful topping on top of it, and they sell it as a beautiful thing because ultimately they're deceiving you what's underneath. There is no transparency. So the government would step in to say, no, if you want to make a deal like this, you need to disclose everything so that there is clear understanding between you and the customer. What was this, what you did, and what it is now. And so that there is no false impression. That is the role of the government. To create
level playing
availability
field
of information, leveling the playing field, that's right, with regards to not being deceived. Now, government comes and you go into somebody and you say, I'm going to give you $5 to work in my place. That's, if I accept, I accept. You see, the government shouldn't say, I know some people might find it strange. Government shouldn't come to say, okay, this is the conditions, this is a minimum wage, this is the price, fixing the wage price or a product price and these kinds of things. Government shouldn't be doing that. Now, instinct in us is because we are good people. We say, well, government should do that. We go then back to our example of we started with when the professor said we should all get B average. You understand? So when you say the minimum, what is the minimum mark that every student will get? It's C. Why not make it A then? Why not make everybody? So what is happening is, what is the purpose of the price? What is the purpose of the freedom? It's basically just on the pure aspect of it is for us to negotiate. It's to us to know what is happening in the market. So if there is a lot of workers, of course, their price per hour will go down. That's what it is. But it's also a byproduct of economy where everybody is the worker. We have destroyed this ability to be entrepreneur, to go beyond that. And so oftentimes I see that in my own community where younger people want immediately to jump into the very high paying job because they want to get married, they want to do something. But a road to that job is very low skill, low paid jobs. And it's the opportunity to work at that level that is very critical for your later life. And so even free jobs, even internship, where you can learn the skills and everything, is very valuable. Sometimes they say, oh, internship should be paid and this should be paid, but this is very valuable for you. I would send my son to do free internship in a place where he can benefit and learn from that experience, and then work at the lower wage, forget whatever wage is, in order to build his career. And that's the reality. Even what they call minimum wage it's not really a good wage. It's just a starter wage. It's just for a certain community, specifically where you don't have a jobs, where it's difficult to get a jobs, minimum wage and these kind of regulations, they have opposite result. They cut the jobs for the people who need them the most, those entry jobs. Because what starts happening is that in your 20s, 18, let's say you're 18 now, you don't have a skills and ability for, why would I pay somebody who is 18 if I have to pay minimum this much? I will look somebody with experience already and everything. So I will never give this opportunity. So now this opportunity from 18 to 20, 25, no job, no skill, no nothing. So you are cutting them in life, you are robbing them of opportunities. This is something that does not allow people to develop themselves. But if I work, if I structure, if I do all of these things, and of course Islam encourage the person who is in the community to be fair, in a sense, to be generous even they don't treat them well. So from Islamic ethos, and that's only through the faith based, is you see somebody, you're not gonna make their life miserable that they have to take 100 jobs to survive. If you can, you will really try to do the best you can, because that also makes sense, that you want to retain the good people, you want to pay them, it doesn't make sense not to pay. You want to have a good ecosystem. And it's a great example of that is Turkish Chobani yogurt, where the guy created empire, $1 billion company, where at the end, all of those people, he gave equity in the company, rewarded them. And so, why? Because they work very hard, they are reason for success, and they also like to share in that success. A smart person would reward people, and they would work because they know that they get much more. I'll give you one simple example. I was recently talking with a teacher in one school, and they say, they cut some program which cost, and just for the argument's sake, in Australia, teachers get $80,000 per year, from 80 to 120, 30.
Oh, wow.
That's probably a lot better than
here. Here's like 30 to 50.
Yeah, it's dismal here.
Right. It's a not great salary here because of our dollar is less than your dollars, but cost of living as well. So it's not that, but let's say it's about, whatever it is. So they get maybe a couple of % more if they do certain duties, like you do it's a lot of hours, and then these are for a few $1,000s extra. They get this throughout the year. They end up, after taxation, it's really peanuts, in a whole scheme of things, nothing. So this one school, they removed that. And I said, isn't it interesting how short-sighted this school was? Because these teachers put equivalent out of that whole salary into this after-school program, mosque programs, community engagement. They give you 100 times more what you pay for. But when you don't pay them that, when you cut it off, then they will give you just what you paid.
Yeah.
You understand? They will give you just those 8 hours. But here you could have weekends, you could have after, because they love to give. They are there with a mission. I mean, I'm not saying everybody, but there are people who give 100% because they understand this is my community, my children, my neighbors' children. And you, even the school is not for profit, it's just a poor strategic thinking on behalf. What this person can give me more. So if you work with people, a little incentive that you can do, increasing, taking care of them, it often can result in much, much higher level of benefit for your business. So anybody who is smart or faith-based incentives will understand that I need to pay people. But at the core of it, if you cannot pay, like I usually give example in Bosnia during the war, when sugar was $60, you can't regulate, let's make it 10 and 5 so people can afford, because you don't have it. The price signals that I need to get more sugar. Just like now in Gaza. Do you think now in Gaza somebody seeing this starvation is not digging tunnels and getting extra food? Of course. Of course. People are either going to be starving to death or they're going to be digging those tunnels from all directions.
Yeah.
Under the ocean, if you want, they will dig to wherever they can.
Yeah.
Whether that makes sense or doesn't make sense. Of course, in Bosnia we did that. And so in the same way, when you have these incentives that either the jobs become too expensive to pay for this, like in Australia, we don't have, doctors are overpaid, we don't have a doctor, so they get double salary, triple than you would normally find anywhere else, because that gives you the signal. Yeah. In a similar way, the abundance of teachers, for example, before made it so that teachers were not paid well. But then teachers left that profession, went somewhere else. Now that increased the demand for teachers and their salary went up. So Islam does not regulate between people how they're going to price the product or the wages, as long as there is no coercion. But it does suggest, not a third party, but that between two of you, you are encouraged to behave in the best of the conduct. That's why you will see in Islamic history that not only do we not want to reward the worker, but guess what we're going to do with that profit? We're going to share the profit with the people. Yeah. So person who is giving the profit away through zakat, sadaqah, building waqf, engaging in the community, do you think he is giving the profit from his business to the strangers or people in the community, and he's not going to be, that kind of person is not going to be paying properly? Yeah, he'll pay 3 times. Forget the living wage or a minimum wage. He's going to reward because he wants. I employ this person because I believe and trust and want to develop relation. I'll reward beyond because I'm looking at the different metrics, but not by the force of law. The force of law and this sort of legislation doesn't work. You understand? Yeah. If anybody thinks McDonald's minimum wage is anything that person with a family should live on, it doesn't matter. It's just a gimmicks. Yeah. It's just legally or minimum wage as if we sold something for good. We sold nothing. No one can live on that wage. It's just minimum for a person not to starve by themselves, not to have a family, or you understand? So these are the type of a fake solution that we are constantly given. So community working together, being free, having these incentives, having the morality, having sense of each other, they will go a little bit differently about this.
Yes. So I'm sure, I don't know if you clerked when you were in law school, but we have similar in both our professions. You have to, what they say, cut your teeth. You have to work for minimum to low. I think it's
peanuts, basically. Yeah.
Sorry.
Free or peanuts.
Yeah. I could tell you in residency, if you did the number of hours we're doing when we were regularly doing 120, 130 hours, 140 hours a week, take the pay. It's under minimum wage, but you have to work your way up, get the experience. That's what you're. The money's there so you don't die. That's essentially, it's so you can have food. But you're there, not because it's a paid position. You're there because you need to get the experience and then develop up. And then, you start out. I remember my first paying job was lower than what I'm making now. And you work your way up.
So think about your profession as a doctor. Yeah. If I mandated that for every one of those 160 hours that you work, or whatever you work,
certain pay
during your first couple of years, or even to university, I believe that you have to be at the hospital and observe and internship, right? If I mandated certain salary that hospital has to pay you, they say, forget it. I'm not. I don't want to do it. Goodbye. Where would you find? How would you become a doctor? Where would you find that opportunity? It wouldn't happen. It simply wouldn't happen. The supply of the doctors would be non-existent. That's from your perspective. Now think about from me, if I run that hospital, what's the benefit for me, for you hanging around asking 20 questions an hour from the doctor? You take 30% of his time that he's dealing with the patients and doing the things. You reduce my efficiency. You should be paying me. So I'm teaching you.
So the irony is, here in America, the reason why we literally, especially in Florida, we've had an explosion of hospital programs that are non-academic starting these training programs. Why? The government subsidizes the salary. Yep. And so what ends up happening? Exactly what you're saying. I'm not mentioning names, but let's just say there are certain healthcare for-profit systems that do not have, I think the argument is, I'll say, allegedly, do not have the welfare of neither the resident nor the hospital, nor the patient at best. They're for-profit and they just want the bottom line. So they're going to take as many residents as they can, even if it's not going to, it's going to be more than you're going to have time to teach and I'm going to have time to learn. Why? Because they just want the money. Give me the money. It's bodies. I can see more patients. I can get through more and then I can make on the back end.
Paying them a lot less.
Yeah.
And so in the long term, imagine impact on the health. The holistic look of somebody who should have understanding. I mean, it's no one benefits. Why? Because we rigged the whole incentives behind this.
Well, someone benefits.
So once somebody benefits, yeah. So it's a purely profit. It's a purely short-term profit. Yeah. You know, at the end, when somebody goes to that hospital and that person is not trained, and you know and you see people actually say, you know what, I have better odds with ChatGPT asking what's wrong with you, you know. And then it killed them one day, you know, ChatGPT. You see liability, so something, you gave me wrong advice.
Use DeepSeek.
Ustaz Colan, I don't want to scare you, but like, I'll tell you in the emergency department, because I'm an ER physician, one of the pervasive issues throughout the whole country is destaffing. So imagine you're a CFO, CNO, whatever, your C-suite. You're looking at this as a company. So how do I cut costs? The bulk of their costs are in staffing. We're the most expensive part. I'm not saying just me, but like the nurses, etc. So what do they want to do if today was busy? If today wasn't busy and I had a lot of nurses on, tomorrow, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Tomorrow I'm not going to have as many nurses as I had today. But a lot of them, there could be an emergency. And there have been hospitals who are literally like, they're like, we cannot handle the volume of patients we're having. It's unsafe, etc. And it's gotten so bad that there's a movement now in a couple states to change the position of the hospital leadership to a clinically licensed professional, so that when they cut staffing, they're clinically liable. They're liable in front of the law. Why? Because they say, oh, no, we don't make decisions in medicine, whatever. So that's how bad it gets, is that sometimes you will not have the tools you need, whether it's staff or supplies or etc., to do your job when it means a difference between life and death for a human because of budget cuts and getting the bottom line. SubhanAllah, like this is where they will shift then that liability to some other structure. They'll find a way out of it by delegating it to somebody else and something else, or maybe those people are good in something, they will just leave, and then more incompetent will come and they will. The issue is that we are not dealing with the core at the end of it, you know. Looking at the whole holistic, if you take the whole holistic approach to this, you know, what is happening? How do we train these people? You know, how do they work? How do we engage? You know, where is the profit motive? How you know, whenever I see around me those emergency vehicles, you know, ambulance and so on, and they in Australia constantly are writing on the back of their emergency vehicle that we don't have enough, like paramedics
fund, or like almost go fund me, you know, for this.
Oh man!
And it's like for God's sake, like is this where we are? Is this where we? And so I'm always happy to pay for this kind of services for these ambulances because it's a great community cooperation that this should be. For us, and we should sort of be somehow made part of it and contributors. And this is one of those things that it's so important for community, that community needs to cooperate together to solve these issues.
And just to go back full circle, as you're saying, that should not be a for-profit scheme, especially when it comes to people's healthcare and people's wellness. I'm not saying you can't make profit in it. But like when that's the primary motive, you know, you're going to cut corners to make more money if that becomes incentive. That's you know, very, very big issue, and I see that firsthand on a daily basis.
Yeah, this is another one of those institutions that is great for Waqf model.
Exactly. That's what
and so that's why you need to look at what was the Waqf before.
Yeah.
Like hospitals, public kitchens. Like even you take like, it's not that you are cutting the opportunity for people to make money. You know, like each of those components, somebody will make those vehicles for profit, the tools that they use for profit, the syringe, the whatever medicine. You know, make all of that stuff. But there is certain things which is about the cooperation. Like you take a public kitchen or a supermarket or something like that, which is actually working with the farmers or food providers, and they are all running this as a business. And then you are kind of like creating the market for them, you know. Like for example, you know, the Wall Street is technically non-for-profit organization.
No, I didn't know that.
Wall Street, yeah. So technically that's what I heard. But it makes sense, for example. Why? Because it has a function that it shouldn't be incentivized. If we take it to the origin of it, what is the origin of stock market? It to connect these businesses with investors so that it's easy for them to inject money into real economic activities. Okay? So we don't want, again, this is a matter of judgment, just like Supreme Court or other things I mentioned, the money itself. Yeah. So this is just a facilitation device. It's not for profit. They shouldn't be other than to run it sustainably. So it's a perfect model for non-profit Waqf or something like that, where the facilitation of this for profit is fair thing. Okay, just like your highway, road, you know, things of that nature. What do we do from it? What do we do from that non-for-profit, which should facilitate? We turn it into casino. Now, nobody goes into any more Wall Street to like, most activity, 99% is these high-frequency trading, just for no reason, speculative
synthetic
trading.
transactions.
And we gamified the entire industry. It became just one big casino where just back and forth, you know. And so most of the participants don't see it like that. So this is where some of these activities, like let's say healthcare, or similar thing, on that level, it needs, even like from the health insurance point of view, you know, where we have this takaful institution where it pools the money together, joins the money together, and then we subsidize. I mean, emergency department is an excellent community model where it serves us all to have, I don't know, let's say in Melbourne I need, 1,000 vehicles. I have no idea how many I need, 500,000, whatever is the number. I need them around. You don't know who is going to need that tomorrow. Who's going to be in accident, who's going to be this. Yeah. It's too much of each one, and it doesn't make sense that this is profit-making activity. They will somebody get the dividends, because they'll start squeezing, they'll put the money over the purpose of this. Yeah. So just like Supreme Court judge cannot be, we made this much money. Like it can't be dividend from that somebody's pocket. So something where the dividend doesn't make sense to reward somebody. The reward is job well done.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, somebody must say, we will, that's why we don't like communism. Okay, military. Profit or not for profit? Like every government subsidizes, every government in that respect is socialist then. Because it
subsidizes,
push the money, subsidize it. Yeah. Now, the problem we have is this military-industrial complex that attaches itself to the big government and other components that incentivize and that can then control the government and correlate decision and taint decision making in favor of the military-industrial complex, they skew the commercial relationship so that these corporations, they can enormously profit. Like, for example, when Trump announced that he's building Golden Dome, like, Israel has that Iron Dome. Yeah. Now that Trump said we want a Golden Dome, which is basically anti-rockets system, $500 billion he want to spend. The first one who raised his hand to do it is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why? Because he see $500 billion there. Now, why did Trump say $500 billion? Is it going to be more or less? We have no idea.
Yeah.
You understand? He just made it like golden, like beautiful, big, beautiful bill, So, Trump and Elon, if they didn't break their relationship, or if they want to silence something or so, because of these other background dealings that are nothing to do with the country, nothing to do with the relief, they will be their buddies. I mean, Elon does have a know-how in terms of engineering, and he's sending these rockets and building electronics and AI, and he does have that. Unfortunately, he would be very skillful, probably, in doing that. But his incentives, his mindset, his, all of these, how they relate to this, would make this mainly for-profit activity for the country. Now, at some level, if you look at Turkey, for example, and their company, even in the military space, to a large degree, they are still driven by protecting the country, and they're much more leaner in that aspect. Of course, there's always danger that you come, but because, when I look at some of those companies, because of the values and where they are and how they are, their production is much more leaner in what they are doing than even United States or Europe. Of course, high-end products that US is able to deliver at the moment, I don't think anybody can match. Those
I sure hope
B-2
so.
bombers that we saw.
If you saw the extravagance in military spending here, where like a part that's like $5-10 could be sold for, like, I'm not even saying $100, $205,000.
Oh yeah.
Why? Because
that's a part of the corruption. I saw something which I think somebody showed. Is it F-35 cup holder, which is like $1,000?
Yeah, wow. Stuff like that.
For the coffee holder, like something ridiculous like that. Yeah. This shows you why these airplanes, like B-2 is a $1 billion, I think, airplane. It cost, I think it cost $1 billion almost per year, or per I don't know how many years, to just maintain. Wow. Every time it flies, it's. I think I heard $100,000 per second maintenance, or per hour or something. So these are the, and this is our whole system. Yeah. Last time we talked about Ozempic cost $1,000 in US and it's $100 in Australia. Yeah. And Australia is pushing now. America is now pushing Australia to change these laws. America is also pushing their beef now onto Australia. We are one of the largest exporters of the meat, and the food, but because there is biosecurity in the American beef issue, how it is fed, whatever they inject, Australia consider that biosecurity hazard and risk. So they don't want American beef, which is the result of this capitalism. They just want to present, this is a beef. Don't ask what's inside. This is a cow. This is a cow. It's good for you. It's American. It's golden. Trump signature. And it's inside is the poison.
Yeah, Texas born and raised.
Yeah, it's
right. Yes. So this is a scam that they want us to buy, whether it's a corn or a beef or anything else. And so when you say no, we actually think that this is not good for us, then they apply the pressure of a state, tariffs and other tools.
Yeah, to try and change that.
So this is where the capitalism, you see, so the capitalism kind of started with we are free. You see, remember the free, and then now it's diplomacy and extortion through the tariffs, through the military, through the systems change in the countries. And a similar communism or the socialism is doing exactly the same. They are using the pressure points. You look into Africa or Balkan area or Pakistan, India,
subcontinent. Yeah.
They are extorting, they are bribing people, they are giving loans, and through the loans that they know are burdening people, they are acquiring the property in return. They are playing all of these kind of games, almost Shylock type of games of the past, where they trick you into a huge debt which you cannot repay, in order then to sign them over mineral contracts, mines,
Ports.
and state property and so on. And so we see this game, it's not like anymore that we have even these incentives of freedom and negotiation and we are going to win market by being better and this. That was maybe idea. That's why I say when Adam Smith was talking about an invisible hand of the market, when he was talking about freedoms, why some of it worked and a lot of people bought into capitalism? Because at that time, values of the people were overriding inefficiency of that system. Because people were still community-based. They had the values and they had some decency. Now that is gone. This kind of system that extract is completely different system.
There were social sanctions back then where you did something wrong and your community would hold you accountable for it. Yeah. And you don't necessarily have that nowadays.
Yeah, like that's right. When Ustaz Colan was mentioning this, like it reminded me of the hadith of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He says, ليس المؤمن الذي يشبع وجاره جائع. Or there's another hadith where it says like لا يؤمن أحدكم, none of you should complete or be complete in his faith, who goes to sleep on a full stomach and his neighbor is hungry and he's aware of it. So like that intrinsic ethic or ethos in caring for others and being benevolent, etc., and sharing what you have. There's another hadith I think where the Rasul was advising Abu Dharr where he's telling him, when you make like soup, add more water to it and then call your neighbors in to share with you, like just to give back that ethos in it, subhanAllah. You remind me when you're talking about also the like the court system, etc. So I won't mention specific, but I gotta tell you, in certain parts of America, the police who write tickets, like you get a parking ticket or speeding ticket, whatever. A speeding ticket is a good example. The revenue that's generated from it is decoupled from your local county, specifically to stop the incentive for artificially increasing the number of tickets. Yeah. And so it goes back to the state where the bureaucracy hands it out and then redistributes it. Yeah. I didn't grow up in that area. I grew up in a county where it stayed local. So let me tell you, when they came to expand the courthouse, $120 million courthouse expansion. Revenues. $120 million. And you can go to court and the judge would he'll reduce the sentence, he'll reduce the fines, he'll get rid of everything. But the one thing they'd never get rid of, court fees. Yeah. Because that's what pays his salary. And so you could see the coupling or the problem with not decoupling that incentive, that financial incentive from the benefit or things that are with people. Yeah.
Because the idea here is that whatever you incentivize, it will increase. Yeah. Yeah. So do I want now to increase on every corner I have these parking spots, and because what they're going to do, they're going to now start decreasing the parking spots.
It's a good
because
point.
It makes sense. Yeah. If I'm in the local, I say, you know what? Yeah. I'm going to abolish all. It's going to be 10 minutes parking spots, and I'll have on every parking spot camera immediately catching you if you are on the 11 minutes. And then my ROI is going to be increasing. I'm going to be great mayor. I'm going to build you a nice, beautiful something,
So
these gimmicks.
Our exact one was, it wasn't parking for speeding. we had 6-lane highway each way. So 12 lanes of traffic, 55 mile per hour speed limit.
Wow.
Why?
Wow. Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, this is why, you know, I don't have now hadith with me, but recently I was talking and I was looking for it for the students. You know, if you look at the hadith where the people do ask the Prophet ﷺ to reduce the prices in the market. Yeah. Do you have that hadith?
Yeah, I can find it real quick. But yeah, the story is that I think the prices went up. There's like almost starvation. And they asked the Rasul ﷺ, can you please adjust the price for us? Yeah. And he said, no, this is, we have, I'll get it for you in a second.
So in this hadith, there are a couple of variations, but the 4 names of Allah are mentioned. So in a sense, the prices became very high in the market, and they asked the Prophet ﷺ to reduce it, and he says, this is something I cannot do. It's the Allah, and he mentioned the 4 names of Allah, very relevant to this discussion, that He is the one who controls. This is what, you know, when Adam Smith talks about invisible hands and blah, 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 you know, he thinks this is what's happening in supply and demand, and this is that invisible hand that controls the market. It's very interesting to link this to discussion of the names that Prophet ﷺ is using in this. And then he says, I don't want basically to commit injustice, to come to the day of judgment where I committed injustice for these people. And injustice here is that I'm now being the one who is replacing. And what are the 4? If you have a hadith, basically the 4 names are, the first name is the name where Allah is the one who price, is the one who expands and contracts.
I got it. And I'll send it to you. It says, إن الله هو المسعر القابض الباسط الرازق. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who fixes the price, who withholds, who lavishly provides and gives. And so وإني لأرجو أن ألقي الله وليس أحد منكم يطالبني بمظلمة في دم ولا مال. And I hope that I reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he will not have no person will have a claim upon me for being unjust regarding blood or property.
So even just if you take those 4 names here, SubhanAllah, you see the Allah is the one who controls these things.
Yeah, SubhanAllah.
He sets the prices. And how is the mechanism going? By other 2 names. The one who contracts and expands the markets. He controls the supply and demand and these things that are happening. And at the end, then we are reminded that he is the one who is the provider. He is the one who provides. Yeah. So you have entire economic dynamics here, from supply and demand and the pricing and how much it's being provided. And anybody who interferes in that by fixing that is interfering in this natural order. And so even when we have the most brilliant intention, I want cheaper for the people, or I want a best, or I want to reward people, get them the fairness, it's not you. You cannot do it by fixing these things.
It's not in our hands.
This is between the people. Because now you are now you do that through coercing me. I need to be the one. And reality is that condition of the market is reality of the people on that market. There, you can make whatever law you want. People will circumvent these laws if they don't want it. So you need to create a system, you need to work on the people who will hold themselves to the higher ethical standards, who will be concerned that their shop next to them earns, they will give up their profit if that neighbor didn't earn. They will treat their customers well. They will treat people who work for them well. They will also be very generous with any surplus that they have towards the rest of the community. This is the way. This is what you want to focus on. These are the kind of people you want to have.
100%.
Jazakallah.
I'm about to close this out, right? So
I think it's a good time.
Yeah, I was just going to mention just to circle back to what we begin, the law I was talking about was the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952. It was primarily a large Jewish population during the Cold War, Soviet era, came to the United States, had communist views. They specifically enacted the law essentially to discriminate against them and enable, this is how Marco Rubio's using the argument, I think it was that if your perspective threatens foreign policy, then we can denaturalize you and deport you. That's what this law was created for. SubhanAllah. And so it's amazing because, like, you'll see, as we mentioned, there are parts in America that follow these Islamic ethos, and there's some parts where it's like directly against, just to support the big guy, just to support the bottom line, just to support the name of unbridled capitalism. SubhanAllah.
By the way, all of these discussions, even in capitalism and everything, you will find that whatever is the good part, freedom and other things, it comes from the religious background. You know, because originally this is what it is. So you go to any of these schools, they say, oh, look at the Austrian school, like, for example. You see the guy, main guy, Jewish guy, he got it from his books. Yeah. And so you follow all of these people, this is where they get these from.
Correct.
This is the same pattern that goes. Even look at the discussion on the Supreme Court when they talk about how to understand it and all of these things, their understanding of most of these conservatives, for example, and you will see that it's come very clearly, the freedom component come from the religious perspective.
Don't they say like a lot of the U.S. Constitution came from French canon law, and that came essentially, a lot of it came from Sharia?
Of course. I think, you know, all law has to be rooted in
some type
some
of
divine
religious, because there's no real moral ethics without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's
because if you're not tying it to the divine, the
fact,
the goalposts are always going to move.
Exactly.
You know, because then it becomes subjective.
Completely subjective. Yeah, what's right for me is not right for you, and so how can I say what your belief is different or is wrong and the mine's right, vice versa?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
One interesting thought, somebody once told me that a law is always expression of morality of one society.
Correct.
And so the problem is, I think what I love to say is that in other religions and cultures, they typically allow the religion to be changed to fit the desires of the people. But in Islam, we try, and because of that intrinsic orthodoxy, we try and change the people to match what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted. And so as a result, the law should be reflective of the morals of the people, because the morals of people based on the rules of Allah.
Well, that's what makes Islam a bit unique from the other faiths, is that there are strong safeguards in place to make sure that it does not become altered over time.
Return it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah khair, Ustaz. Another intriguing conversation.
Very thought-provoking, mashallah.
Yeah, I know it's very high level. You know, I'm sure you could speak for hours and hours and days about how the Islamic model differs or is similar to the other financial systems that we spoke about. But this was good to talk about.
Inshallah, we'll
discuss today.
I'll leave the direction to Ustaz Colan for this, but inshallah, in the future episodes we can take a little bit deeper dive if you'd like to in communism, capitalism, and then inshallah we can also, what everyone I'm sure is waiting for too, is to introduce the Islamic model as well as its benefits and how it fixes and addresses a lot of these
excited
issues.
to know how
Look, sometimes you need to raise different points, even though sometimes they are not necessarily in a linear way, like we usually think about, because you need to start thinking. You need to get a little bit dust up and you take a samples of few ideas, and a lot of people listening might not see, but why this is this, why this is that, this is not most important, this is what I see. Like, okay, but now you are taking a pulse of different body parts, and it just makes you start thinking, so that we can then start getting into a bit more discussions, like when you brought up issue of you going to medical school, for example, or a parking ticket at that local council. You know, sometimes we have to throw a couple of the points, so that they start sticking, and then we start drawing in certain principles, you know. So it's a look like a bit of a messy, like everywhere here and there. But once you start going, it's not that many principles. There are not that many principles at play, but just we need to have a bit more appreciation of these principles.
Definitely.
And then when we start filtering them, that lens will become, you know, through which we hopefully will go into a bit more specific example. It will be much more interesting that you start picking apart. You see, like that parking, you know, or and you start thinking, oh, well, then they reduce the speeding limit to 55, and then they did this, and then they built that, and then why this? Then you can go nitty gritty, and then it's a constant between back and forth, and through that back and forth between some principles and some observations, it shapes the way you are looking. It increases your economic literacy, interpretation of what you are seeing. And it's only then that you start appreciating simple things. When I say to you, you know, economics really is about incentives drive outcome, not intentions. You cannot immediately appreciate its, you know, you have intention, that intention will be worse for you than certain incentives that you put and a system you put that drives that behavior. You understand? And so not everybody can immediately grasp how profound that is unless you have a bit more thinking about it.
Ourselves included. Wallahi, subhanAllah, you're opening my mind as we talk about things, subhanAllah. And I think Omar and I, one of the goals we wanted from this podcast, we could have easily just gone into, like, you know, as we mentioned to you in the beginning, we want to talk about like specific tax mitigation strategies and asset protection. Yeah, but like there's a process. There's a method to the madness. To when we get to the, you know, the, as you said, the specific rules, there's a bigger mindset. And that's the thing that Allah, like, I don't think we've seen someone talk it out. There's so many times you get in a discussion or a podcast or debate or something, like, man, I wish you would have jumped on that. Maybe you would have expounded on that, talk about that a little bit more. But no, we try and just condense and get to the goal. So no, I don't think anyone's complaining. Jazakallah kulla khair for taking the time to explore these things. Real quick thing, in Ustaz Colan's one of his online podcasters recently, I think it was like maybe 2-3 weeks ago, he's focusing on this one book and he's talking about this one thing, and like question after question after question after question came out with a different topic, and he's like, he closed the book. He's like, okay, Talaba, we're talking about this, we'll just talk about this topic. And you know, so that's wherever the conversation goes you, and it opens doors and it brings up questions, and alhamdulillah, no, I love that.
And that conversation went for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And we didn't even discuss the notes of that slide because it went to monetary economics and other things. And the thing is, I didn't even want to put it out, you know. I said, you know, forget it. Because the problem is that it's such a sensitive topic in the mind of the people that if you cut pieces, you get a totally different. You have to listen full 3 hours
to get the full.
And it's a topic I don't like to go into because I know people don't understand, or they jump to conclusion too early. And unless you listen 3 hours and there is discussion and you understand, then you piece it together, you know. Because this issue of money and anything about that, it's a very sensitive to people, you know. And you would be surprised how people misunderstand it easily, or even ourselves, a level of our own biases or misunderstanding, or how tainted our views are, or superficial or incorrect. Many things we take for granted, that this is Islamic or this is not Islamic, or this is a problem, or this, in our analysis, which try to reduce everything to simple solution. And I take it down. It all comes down to our economic illiteracy, that we simply cannot read the link between causes and effects. You know, like what drives certain effects, why it is happening like that. If I do this, this will happen. Like, people do not have that sort of thought process. They do not understand it. That's why we can have this kind of idea, you know, government-run groceries, they are great. if you only thought about it properly, if you understood it, if you had a way of thinking through that intention will be very bad for you.
Yeah.
It's very bad intention. Now, intention itself is great, and there are some solutions, but you took the worst one, but you don't see it. You know, but people are in so desperate situation, they don't know how to think. They are not taught how to think. Just like mathematics, I would make economics mandatory because it's a way to structure your thinking.
Yeah,
just like engineer, you know. And it's not just necessarily about the specific outcomes that you want. It's just everybody should learn how to think through what they're saying and where this is going, and be aware of the consequences and other related aspects as they drive that.
100%. No, Jazakallah khair. Again, that's the thing, is this is hopefully like a thinking man's podcast. This is so we can think and expand our horizons and look at things from a different lens. I always say this so many times during my khutbahs, is that Islam isn't just a set of rules and regulations. That's, you know, like downgrading it so much from what it is. Islam is a way of, teaches you how to rethink and reinterpret and re-understand and look at things anew from a different perspective. Like the hadith we mentioned before, Atadruna man muflis, who is the bankrupt person? It changes the way you think about things. And so Jazakallah khair for opening these doors and inspiring those conversations. And inshallah, you know, we apologize to the brothers and sisters. I know these you know, videos go a little on the long side, but I think to do justice to them and to actually arrive at a meaningful conclusion, like you said, you got to put the time in, you got to put the effort, we got to rise at the process.
It's great that the conversation's not so rigid, and alhamdulillah, it's wherever the dialogue takes us, we appreciate hearing from you and have such a great time.
You know, you said to make an amendment. There's no financial literacy whatsoever in like school. We don't.
Well, I mean, that was part of why we did this podcast, because we felt like a lot of this was not available to us, and we want to make it available to not just our friends and family, our community, but anyone who's willing to listen, right?
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Ustaz. A great conversation as always. I know myself, I'm definitely looking forward to the next one, inshallah, and hope to see you soon. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Click the like button, smash that like button,
smash the like
follow,
button, hit subscribe.
Not for the clicks, not for the numbers, but just so we can get the information out to as many people as we can. Inshallah, make a difference.
Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.